May 21st, 2020. From El Cajon in San Diego, California, this is episode 209 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. My name is Mark Duvall, and sitting at his home is Dr. Mike.
Hello.
So a lot has happened since our last episode as far as casinos opening. It happened a lot sooner than I thought it would, but a bunch of openings have popped up across the country.
Yeah, it's funny how one goes and they all go. They're like dominoes falling.
One of the first places to open was Deadwood, South Dakota. And in fact, we talked about some pictures that we saw of the opening when we were on the Better Life podcast this last week. We were a little surprised at some of the face coverings and some of the lack of face coverings at some places. But it's now spreading to the rest of the country. And we first heard that Viejas Casino, which is here in San Diego County, we first heard that it was going to be opening up. We heard about it last week, and it actually opened up this past Monday. And the same day, Harrah's Cherokee also opened up, although it was invitees only. I assume maybe they invited Diamond and Seven Stars members.
At the Harrah's Cherokee, yeah. Viejas was, I think, just a regular public opening, right?
As far as I know, and you and I were toying with the idea of actually stopping in to see what it was like. We were thinking, well, let's go in, we won't play, but we'll walk around, we won't touch anything, just to kind of get a feel for what they were doing so we could talk about it on the show. But then we ended up talking ourselves out of it, really for health reasons more than anything else. But now I'm really glad we didn't try to go because the line was huge to get in.
Yeah, they said it circled the building. Funny thing is, so today, Sequan Casino here in San Diego opened. And I just saw just a few minutes ago on the news where there were no lines.
Yeah, see, interesting.
Like, people were just going in and out regular like they would anywhere else. And they had a soft opening, though, yesterday for VIPs. So maybe a lot of people who were higher tier status went yesterday and, they didn't feel like going today or whatever.
Yeah, that could be. And more casinos here in San Diego are going to be opening up very soon. In fact, here in Southern California, where we usually go, is opening Friday. We have decided we're probably not going to go this opening weekend, certainly not on Friday or Saturday. And we're debating when we're actually going to go. I'd kind of like to get a report from there to see what conditions are like. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's play a couple of voicemails here because we have been getting a few reports. But first off, let's start with Jason, who kind of had some questions about tribal casinos and what they might be doing.
Hey, gentlemen, it's Jason from Michigan. Sorry if it's a little noise out for my morning walk, which it seems like I either walk, run, or bike multiple times a day. That's all I do now. But wanted to call in and let you know here in Michigan, we do have a tribal casino in Upper UP, Michigan, that is trying to open next weekend, which by the time you get to this, it'll have passed. And they are in debates or fights with the governor currently trying to get that done. I'll be very curious when you play this podcast if the casino wins or the state wins, and just to get your thoughts on if that's going to be the future of casinos starting to open, going against their government wishes. That's all. Have a great day. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks.
Well, certainly in the case of the San Diego casinos around us, I don't know if defiance might be too strong a word, but they're definitely going against the suggestion of the government by opening.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed, though. Haven't you seen that some people in government positions are like, well, okay, and other people are like, no, they shouldn't open. And I hear different stuff from different people. So, like with everything else, it seems like in our lives lately, you're getting mixed results. It's weird.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about on the Better Life, too, is we're not going to make any judgments for people who feel very strongly one way or the other, because they are very emotional issues, and each person kind of has to decide what's important to them.
Well, I thought one thing that was interesting here in San Diego, there's a county supervisor, and he wanted to keep this county of San Diego closed a lot longer. But then when he was asked about the casinos, his response was, well, that's sovereign ground, and Native Americans over time have put up with a lot. So if they want to open, okay.
Yeah, that is the thing. They're sovereign territory. And so that really is a lot of the argument is, well, okay, if they want to open, because it's not like they're just opening the floodgates, right? They are taking precautions.
Right. They're trying to do the best they can, I think. And another funny thing is some of the ones here in San Diego County have said they're not opening. Just today, Palma Casino, which is a relatively small casino, said that they have no plans to open anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, I think, for financial reasons. It was just that whoever's in charge of that particular casino feels that it's, not safe.
And you and I have talked about how Barona, which is one of the big players in town, it's like the only big casino that does not have plans right now to open.
Right. And I don't know about you, Mark, but I kind of consider Barona as the oldest, most established casino here in San Diego.
Oh, I don't know if it's technically true, but I know what you mean. And certainly it's
Right.
well respected. It's a great property. They have really great rules for gamblers. It is true.
It seems really well run.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just always kind of look at it as the standard. And I kind of expected they'd open first, to be honest.
You know what I hope they do when they reopen? I hope they have this huge marketing campaign and it says, "Come catch the coronavirus." It'll be like super offensive, right? And incredibly bad taste, but you and I will just be loving it.
Well, I would love that. The coronavirus. Have you got the coronavirus?
Yeah, a guy with a thermometer in his mouth, pulling the slots.
Oh, well, getting back to Jason's call, they are having some problems in Michigan, in the state of Michigan right now. And God, I'm praying for those people, the flooding and stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, terrible. Well, one of our listeners did go to Viejas this opening week. So let's hear from a different Jason.
Hey guys, Jason from Orange County, giving you the first opening up trip report. Viejas was the first casino in San Diego County to open it up. I went on the second day and just wanted to give you guys an idea of what I saw. Every other machine was turned off, giving plenty of space for people to social distance. Blackjack tables and other card tables were only 3 players max, so there's a seat in between every player. And every time that a new player would sit down, they'd wipe down the seat, wipe down the bar and the cushion at the seat. The craps table at the Viejas only was allowed to have 2 players on each side. So a total of 4. So there was a long wait to get onto a table, especially the craps table and other blackjack tables as well. But every shooter, they would wipe down the dice, spray down the dice. So they're taking all the precautions. This may be the new norm. When the other casinos open up over the next couple of weeks, we might be seeing something similar. So I just want to let you guys know what I saw, and good luck out there.
One of the things, Mike, you and I have talked about is when we do go back to Harrah's, we don't want to wait in a line to get in, number one, because typically it's, you wait in a line till somebody comes out, and then they let a person in, right? One out, one in. And then even if we were to get into the casino, would there be a line or a sign-up sheet or something to actually get on the craps table? Now, Jason was saying that Viejas, they only had 2 players on each side of the table. I'm guessing it will be 3 on each side of the table at Harrah's because that seems to be more of the standard. But again, would we just, get up there and then we can't get on a table?
Well, think of it, Mark. Usually, it's 2 or 3 tables. So let's say it was just 2 tables open and there were 6 people allowed, 3 on each side. That'd be 12 people wanting to play craps.
Mm-hmm.
And at Harrah's Rincon, it is a huge craps casino.
Yes.
I mean, there might be 50 people playing on some nights when it's real crowded.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you imagine going there? We show up, there's 12 people playing, and what are we going to do? Sit there for 3 hours while we wait for somebody to leave? I mean, we're not big slot players, so I guess we could go play some video poker or something, but then what do? Put your name on a list and
I don't know.
Over the loudspeaker?
Well, no, they would probably they'd text you, right? They wouldn't have a bunch of announcements.
Maybe, I don't know. I will honestly not be surprised if when we get there, there's this big, huge thing that says take a ticket. And we take a ticket and you get your ticket, you look at it, it's like 58.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear them call, now serving number 3. Number 3, please. I mean...
And then you got to go up to the counter and tell them what game you want to play. Oh yeah, I actually wanted to play roulette. Oh, well, there are no openings in roulette. Pick another number and get back in line.
It'd be like the meat store where you have to take a number to be
the
served.
meat store. You mean the butcher?
That place, yeah. My favorite thing is when you go into some place, like there's a butcher shop here that has one of those, or at Costco at the optometry area.
Yeah.
Right? You take a number, and I love it when you go in and there's nobody there, and they look to help you, and I just look at them, and without saying a word, I go take a number.
For them?
If they're going to have that machine, I'm going to use it.
Oh, that's great.
They're probably thinking, great, he wasted a number.
Yeah, really. Those little paper numbers don't grow on trees. Oh, wait. All right. Well, we've got a couple more calls, some reports to some opening casinos. So let's hear from yet another Jason about how it's going at Harrah's Cherokee.
Hey, Dr. Mike, Mark, this is Jason from Atlanta. Went up to Cherokee for the opening just to give you an idea of what they're doing. When you pull up, they check your temperature in the truck or the car. Then you go and park, and you have to wear a mask the whole time you're inside the hotel or casino. The craps, there's 6 to a craps table, 3 on each side. They give you new dice every time there's a new shooter and sanitize the old dice. Played a little blackjack. Everything, you cannot touch cards. So with the blackjack, everything's faced up. So they had 2 double decks, but they're closed right now. And then Mississippi Stud is actually face up. So they don't want you touching the cards at all. Other than wearing the mask, had a great time. There was probably maybe 50 people in the casino because it's invitation only right now. But just want to give you a heads up and let everybody know what the playing conditions is at Cherokee. Enjoy your show. First time caller, long time listener. You take care.
Now, it's interesting about the cards because, first of all, we're not surprised that they're not allowing players to touch the cards. But it brings up some interesting questions. He's saying they have face-up Mississippi Stud. Well, I'll tell you,
that's interesting.
If you know what other players have, what their cards are, you can use that to your advantage. Now, if there are only 3 players on a table, then I don't know how much information you can really get from looking at the other 2 players' cards. But it's certainly some information. You'd have to maybe run some computer simulations to find out what you would need to do. But let's say you had some low pair, a pair of deuces or something, and you look over and the other 2 deuces in the deck are being used by the other 2 players. Well, then you might make a different decision than you normally would.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely going to give you some information.
But I'm thinking about other games like Pai Gow Poker. Well, unless you're playing face-up Pai Gow Poker, typically you're not going to throw all the cards face up. And, would you have to tell the dealer, okay, here are the 2 I want to play in my 2-card hand? And, other games where, really it's to the casino's disadvantage if players can see each other's cards. It'll be interesting to see what they do with games where players really do need to touch cards.
It would be kind of boring, though, to play Pai Gow, whether it's traditional or face-up Pai Gow, where you don't get to touch the cards.
Yeah, I know.
They just deal them all up, and then you, I want that one and this one on top, and the dealer has, there's something about touching the cards.
Oh, for sure.
That you like about those games.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I will
forward.
say this, though, even though we all know that David is the most common name in a casino, evidently, when casinos open after a long time of being closed, Jasons go to casinos more than Davids.
Oh, yeah, the Jasons flock there.
And thankfully, thanks to all the Jasons who called, we got some good information.
Yeah, because honestly, the reason I wanted to go to Viejas earlier was so we could report about it on the show. And so I am glad we got some information here. Well, we actually do have one more call, and this is not from a Jason, but from Will. So let's see what Will has to say about Oklahoma.
This is Will from Kansas, and I've got an actual live trip report from Craps last night in Miami, Oklahoma at Buffalo Run Casino. So I got there around noon, not really knowing what to expect. There was actually a line. It took me about an hour just to get inside.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got inside, all the ATMs were down, so I had to wait almost another hour to get money out of the cage. What I didn't know is the craps table didn't open until 4 o'clock. So I got my name on a waiting list, actually sat down and played some blackjack. got up maybe $100 from where, just kind of wasting time right next to the crap table. Finally got on the table. When it opened up, it was kind of really slow because they were sanitizing everything over and over. People kept coming by to wipe the table down. In the middle of the rolls, also wipe down the dice in between every new shooter. However, the table was really good last night. A lady hit the all tall small, had $5 on each. So that really kind of topped off my wins last night. Ended up $1,200 up for the night. There were a lot of players, of course, waiting around to play. So it was really loud, as they only allowed 3 people on each side of the table. You know, the crew is really awesome at Buffalo Run, but just kind of some of the players don't really know the game very well. And they literally stayed on the table the entire time I was there, which kind of shocked me because sometimes they weren't even really playing. And so it kind of confused me because I'm like, well, why would you wait around or take up the table space when you don't even really care about playing too much? And players like me that had at least a couple $100 on the table at one time, and then you had players that were playing like $5 on a couple numbers. So it's kind of interesting. The smoke really got to me. I haven't been to smoke since this all started about 2 or 3 months ago. So it really got to me last night. I had the worst headache of my life when I was coming home. But ended up for the night. The gameplay was slower, but still good. The crew is great there. And had a really good time finally playing live craps again. So, hey, hope you guys enjoyed my trip anyways, and hopefully everybody gets to play craps soon. Thanks.
Okay, good. Well, I am guessing, Mike, that between now and the next episode, we probably will head up to Harrah's, Southern California, and hopefully have some some reports from us.
Well, a couple things I wanted to mention. It sounds like Will was saying the limits were low. Which surprises
$5.
the heck out of me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because think about it. I mean, in a casino, like he was saying, there's people playing, and they're taking up space. How's the casino going to make any money with, a table of 6 and 3 people are playing just $5?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not going to pay for the dealers, really.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that I wanted to say was, I believe Jason, who went to Viejas, said he was from Orange County.
Yes.
And like I was telling you, I think because Vegas hasn't opened, all the LA people are going to be flocking to San Diego to go to casino. All the people who want to go to casino. Orange County to Viejas is still a good hour and a half drive.
Oh, yeah. Say more than that.
And then, and people from LA are going to be coming down when Harrah's opens and stuff. Now, the hotel at Harrah's isn't open, so they can't stay overnight.
That's true.
But, if they come down, they're not going to go in the casino and play like an hour or two and leave. I mean, they drove all that way. They're going to stay there quite a while. So I can imagine the waits to get in might be pretty bad. Yeah,
that is a really good point because Pechanga, which is closer to LA than Harrah's, they're not opening yet. So you're right. And plus, Harrah's is the only casino basically in the Southern California area that is tied to Caesars Entertainment. And so, they're going to want, everybody's got their reward credits and everything. They're going to want to come down and use them. So, yeah, there may be some big crowds at Harrah's.
There could be some big crowds there. Another thing, speaking of Harrah's, just today, my casino host in Las Vegas at Harrah's Las Vegas called and said that the rumor is that they're going to be opening around the 1st of June.
Harrah's in particular, or because it sounded like
that was Harrah's in particular.
Okay, because it sounded like Caesars and even MGM were going to be opening properties kind of staggered, like only open a couple of them initially and then more as it goes on. But she said the rumor is June 1st for Harrah's.
June 1st for Harrah's. That's what she said. She just wanted to let me know if, we wanted to come. That was the rumor.
Yeah.
Now, Harrah's is one of the smaller properties there in the Caesars Entertainment Group.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So maybe they're going to open a couple of the smaller places first.
It could be, but I thought Caesar's Palace was going to be one of the first ones, which kind of makes sense. Okay. It's, their flagship.
Right. It just seems like easier to clean and easier to monitor in a smaller casino. So maybe they open it to see how it goes, right? Before they get something real big.
I kind of agree with you, but I just don't see how you can ever clean Harrah's well enough.
Just a big sign on the door, closed for cleaning.
It's a permanent sign.
It's just a permanent sign. It never goes away. Closed for cleaning. Pardon our dust. That That'll be on our casino. Right in the door, it'll just say, "Pardon our dust."
That's it. You get your business
construction going on.
You get your business card from your host, right? It's got the address. Harrah's Las Vegas. Pardon our dust.
Oh, we shouldn't make fun of them. It's just
It's one of our favorite properties, so I think we can make fun of them. All right. Well, that does it for the casino openings. I'm sure we'll have much more to say about it on our next episode. Meanwhile, we've been playing poker online, a lot of poker, and Dr. Mike, you are on fire.
I am on fire. I just seem to have been doing well recently.
Wow. We really need to make some last longer bets. Well, you do, because I think, Mike, honestly, since we've been doing this, you have finished higher than I have every single time. Isn't that true?
I think that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling my wife the other day that I'm going to write a book called How to Play Better Than Mark.
Oh, okay.
But it's not going to be about you. At the end of the book, I'm going to say that it's How to Play Better Than Mark Heiser.
Oh, Paul's brother.
Yeah, Paul's brother.
So you'd be reading it the whole time, and you just assume it's me, and it's actually Paul's brother, who nobody who listens to the show knows.
But you know what? I've always told you this. Paul's brother is the hardest person to play against because he's so unorthodox, so erratic. You can never put him on a hand because you just don't know what he's doing.
No, it's true. I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Right. And that might be the secret to my success, Mark. That's what I'm
Hey, folks, based on some of the hands I've seen him play, I think he's right. But no, he's got a horseshoe because even that tournament where he accidentally folded, when he meant to call, he still finished in the money. I still can't believe what a bonehead move that was by you.
Well, every once in a while, people screw up. I'm not going to hold that against them.
All right. So for those who don't already know, at the tournament the following week, I made a flush at the end in a huge pot. And by calling, I would have been a monster chip leader. And I don't even know how I did this. It was almost like my hand just had a mind of its own and moved to the fold button and hit click. And okay, now we've both done it. Oh my gosh. Yep. I really probably would have won that tournament. It would have been a huge chip lead. He bet, and I'm thinking, yes, I made my flush.
The funny thing is that it just lends credit to my theory that stay in every hand till the end, never hit fold.
Hey, it's working for you, Mike.
Have a piece of tape over the fold area, right? Just never hit fold.
Oh my gosh. All right, Mike, I think you're going to like this story. Listener Andy pointed us to this article. So there's a man by the name of Frederick Wolford, and he was playing Pai Gow poker at the Elements Casino in Brantford, Ontario. And he was making the side bet on Pai Gow poker that you've seen before, where you'll get paid out if you make a certain hand. The better the hand you have, the more you'll get paid. Usually you have to have like a straight or higher, or in some cases a full house or higher, but it's a side bet. So on this particular hand, he had $10 on the side bet, and he was dealt 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace of clubs, plus the 4 of spades and a joker. So he's got a natural royal flush and a 4 and a joker that's just going to be played as an ace. So he's going to play the royal flush in the 5-card hand and ace 4 in the 2-card hand. So, of course, he's very happy. Not a guarantee on, beating the dealer, because ace 4 you could lose in the 2-card hand, but certainly you're going to win something on this side bet. So the payouts of the side bet were printed on the felt. And one of the payouts was for 1,000 to 1. And this is exactly what it said on the felt. 1,000 to 1 if your hand was a royal flush with ace and queen suited. Okay, that's the way it was worded.
So in other words, no joker is what they're getting at, right?
No, I don't think so. Let's go a little bit further, all right? So again, 1,000 to 1 if your hand was a royal flush with ace and queen suited. So Woodford thinks he's won this 1,000 to 1 payout because he's got a royal flush with ace and queen suited. Well, every royal flush has an ace and queen suited. Now, like you said, if you're playing a joker, maybe you don't really have the ace or the queen. But every royal flush has ace queen suited, right?
Right.
So Wolford is saying, I went 1,000 to 1. The dealer wasn't sure. The dealer called a pit boss over. The pit boss called a manager over. The manager called a shift manager over. Finally, the shift manager explained that the 1,000 to 1 payout was when you have a royal flush in your 5-card hand and a suited ace queen in your 2-card hand. And when it's explained like that, it's like, okay, a royal flush with ace queen suited.
Oh, okay.
So Wolford only qualified for a simple royal flush payout, which was 125 to 1. And it's funny because Andy and I, we were kind of corresponding about this. If that had happened to us, probably to you too, Mike, and they explained it's like, oh yeah, of course. Royal flush, ace queen suited. Yeah, sorry, I misread it. Well, Wolford and a friend of his who had also made the side bet, so he qualified for an envy payout, right? Because Wolford made the royal flush. They took the casino to court, and they won. The court ordered the casino to pay the bet off at 1,000 to 1. And it came down to the word with, because the printout didn't say royal flush and ace queen suited. It said royal flush with ace queen suited. And one of the arguments that their attorney used was also on the payout table was a payout for a 7-card straight flush with joker. Well, the word with in that case means the joker is part of the 7-card straight flush, right? It doesn't mean in addition to. So since with meant, part of the straight flush, in that case, they were arguing that with meant that the royal flush had a suited ace queen, even though all royal flushes have suited ace queens.
Suited ace queens.
And so they won the case.
I'm going to side with the players.
All right.
On this. And here's why. Obviously, if it was pointed out to me, I okay, I understand now. But, when you said that with versus and, yeah, it does make sense. I mean, if you took it literally with, it sounds like an ace queen in there. That's why when you said it, I just jumped to the conclusion that it meant that you couldn't have a joker as part of your royal flush.
And that the first time I read the article, I kind of stumbled on that too. I kind of had to reread it. So it wasn't that clear to me either. I agree. I still don't know that I would have sided with the players, but good for them for taking it all the way to court and risking, because I don't think they would have had a case. So it turned out good for them.
I think the casino should actually appeal it to the state Supreme Court and then have it go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they have to decide whether with or and is correct.
All right. Well, first of all, this was in Ontario, Canada. All right. So they're not going to take it to the state Supreme Court. Okay. Number one.
Well, a province court or whatever.
Number two, apparently between the time he won the hand and it actually went to court, they changed the felt. So that it actually said, it was very clear that royal flush in the high hand and, ace queen suited in the low hand. So.
Well, even if they said with, all they would have had to say was the royal flush with ace queen suited in the 2-card hand.
There's so many ways you can do it. Royal flush in the 5-card hand, ace queen suited in the 2-card hand, right? And that's clear.
Right. That'd be a lot clearer. But, well, that's an interesting story. So words matter.
Yes, words matter. In this case...
Right.
Hey, on our last episode, one of our callers was asking why anyone would play 3-card poker blind. In other words, just you're always staying in the hand no matter what you have. You don't even look at the hand. You're always staying in. And you and I both agreed it's probably just, somebody, just action junkie, something like that. I suggested that also it might be so that you don't miss out on the side bet, that maybe the person who had been playing once didn't stay in, and so they missed winning the side bet, and they were angry, and they didn't want that to happen again. Well, one of our listeners pointed out that certainly for 3-card poker, and for many carnival games, the side bet is active even if you fold your hand. And I'd completely forgotten that. I won a side bet a while ago. I was talking about at Harrah's, where I folded some horrendous hand. It was like tray 7-10. I folded it, but I ended up making a full house along with the dealer's cards. So that would not be a reason that you would play 3-card poker blind. And so thank you for that listener for contacting us and making it clear that that's not a good reason.
That's why they leave those cards out on the table instead of locking them up after you fold it. They just set them in front of you.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So,
yep.
So they can review that.
All right. We got some questions from listener Austin through email. So let's read some of these. He says, I made several futures bets that have since been voided due to coronavirus cancellations. First one was on Dayton to win March Madness. Most places had them at anywhere from 6-1 to 8-1. But then on a whim, I checked out William Hill at Casino Royale, and they didn't even have Dayton as an option. And they had the field at 13-1. I was a bit flummoxed that they didn't have the number 6 team as an option in a list of about 50. Have you ever seen a highly ranked team not even offered as a bet like that? So first of all, let's talk about what the field means. So if you see a bunch of odds up there for teams to win March Madness, say there are like 20 teams listed, and then at the very bottom it says field, that basically means you're betting on every other team possibly winning. So it's just a way to group all the teams that don't have their own line into one group. And so he was saying he was surprised that Dayton was not showing up as one of the main bets, implying that they were part of the field, but that the field wager was actually paying better than when he had just bet Dayton individually at these other casinos. Have you ever heard of something like this, Mike?
No. And when I read this, when you forwarded this to me and I read it, I thought to myself, that's got to be a mistake.
I think so.
I mean, not on Austin's part, but the casino's part. They must have somehow overlooked that or something, because Dayton was highly ranked and there's no way they'd be left off.
Yeah, I'm thinking that either they were inadvertently left off or somehow they just weren't up on the display for some reason. Because before I would have jumped to the field and say, hey, I know Dayton's in there because it's not listed anywhere else, I'd probably want to talk to somebody at the book and say, okay, who's not in the field or who is in the field, whatever's the easier question, just to verify. I think this was a mistake.
Yeah, I think what I was thinking, it's a glitch whoever was programming in the stuff on the board. So let's say they have a piece of paper and they're supposed to program the board to say Duke at this and that, North Carolina at this and that, San Diego State even money. And then, when they got to Dayton, somehow they just skipped that line and went to the next one and forgot to put it in there.
Yeah.
But it was probably in the computer, just not on the board.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know how they actually do that there, but I definitely would have questioned it, and I think it was a mistake.
Yeah, I didn't see you at the parade, by the way.
Oh, for San Diego State winning the tournament, the whole thing?
They had a parade here in Tierra Santa.
Oh, did they? Yeah, during the quarantine?
It wasn't quite so much a parade. It was me driving down the road with my San Diego State hat, waving out the window, yelling, "Go State, go State."
Oh, nice, good. But, were the crowds on the side of the street, were they pretty appreciative?
They were very appreciative. And the two people in the back seat were yelling at me like crazy.
Oh,
and
good.
I don't know. It sounded kind of like, Dad, you're embarrassing us.
Really? Well, I can't imagine that somebody would be saying that on a float in a parade, but you were there.
A nice parade like that.
Yeah. All right. Next question from Austin. Also made a bet on Tampa Bay Lightning to win the Stanley Cup. 6-1, I think. This one is still technically pending. So I was looking at the fine print, and the bet would still be working even if they don't play any more games, and the NHL declares a champion based on the games already played. I would feel a bit cheated if that happened, and would almost just rather have the bet voided. Thoughts? What do you think about that, Mike? That you've bet on some team, and then they don't even get a chance to compete for the title. Some other team is just announced as the winner, as the champion.
Right. That's so hard to do because I think, if the NHL did something like that, I could see them doing that because maybe it's unfeasible to play the rest of the season. So you just have to declare a winner. So in the record books, it'll say, shortened season, so-and-so won.
Right.
But a sports book should void all those bets because playoffs are different, right? Not very seldom does the most favored team win in the playoffs the whole way through, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times there's upsets. I mean, even in Super Bowls, a lot of times the two teams that get there maybe didn't have the two best records.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, that they took this into account and did put it in the fine print. So even if you're
Yeah.
thinking that's what they should do is just void it, well, it's interesting. They thought about it and actually put that in there in anticipation of this unlikely event.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a rule, it's a rule, right?
Yeah.
But I just think it shouldn't be a rule. It should be like, if we don't have an actual playoff, then all bets are voided.
Yeah, I tend to agree. All right, next question. Do you think there is any chance of sports books offering special deals when redeeming voided tickets, especially with how much would have been already bet on March Madness? I feel like it would behoove them to offer like 110% value of your bet directly towards a new bet rather than letting the money walk out the door. I'm thinking this is pretty doubtful because sports books, they lost a lot of money on March Madness. It's not just one game, it's tons of games. So even if there's one upset along the line, in the long run, this is a big moneymaker for the sports books, and they lost money this year.
Yeah, and I also think that casinos know how gamblers operate, and people who are going to wager on sports are going to wager on sports, whether they give them 110% back or just 100%, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So why are they going to give them more money? Because they know the money's coming back. It's just that guy's going to wait and bet on, whatever, the next event.
Yeah.
What did you think of NASCAR's return to racing this weekend? They had the first NASCAR live race without fans, and it was watched by 6.3 million people.
Wow.
And, for a NASCAR event, that's a television. That's a pretty good turnout.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been no sports for, a couple months now.
Right. So everyone was watching, and I actually asked a patient of mine, so I know he's a huge sports fan, but mostly baseball, football type fan.
Yeah.
And I said, did you watch the car race yesterday? And he said, yes, I did. Because it was the first live thing. He said he was getting tired of watching old baseball games on the MLB network.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, he watched it, and they're probably going to get a ton of fans. Like that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, next question. I've heard Mark go on several times about how the casinos don't have someone in the back room changing the odds on slot machines based on how many people there are, major events, etc. However, I ran into a situation last year where I think it was entirely possible and maybe even likely. Let me just interject here. So I may have actually said something like that. If I did, I was probably technically wrong, but I'll get to that. Let's continue. I went on a cruise with MSC Cruises, who for that cruise partnered with the Cosmo in Vegas to bring 40 high rollers on the cruise. I was definitely not one of these. My being there was random. While on the cruise, playing mostly blackjack and three-card poker, a lot of people were talking about how loose the slots were. I heard someone say on like day 5 of the cruise, they had already paid out $40,000 in jackpots. Since MSC isn't a super popular cruise line in North America, and they were obviously schmoozing the Cosmo players, do you think it's possible they adjusted the slot odds for the entire week to help make a good first impression? Okay, so I'm thinking probably not. I'm thinking that this was just a nice little run for the slot players. And this is really the point that I want to make, and I'm sorry if I was too definitive when I was originally talking about this, but if casinos are changing the odds on their slots, there's no good way for a player to tell exactly what is going on because these sample sizes are just way too small. Oh, they must have adjusted these slots, to pay out this weekend for, whatever reason. Well, you're basing that on just a few hours of play. And so that's all I'm getting at. Certainly there's no way I can prove that they're not, constantly tweaking things here and there. I just don't think so. What do you think, Mike?
Well, a couple things. I think, number one, on a cruise ship, they're going to get your money whether you lose it in the casino or not.
Yeah.
And I think if they paid out $40,000 in jackpots, they probably got that back in alcohol sales on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, at the end of a cruise, and my experience is limited, but I know at the end, I'm always shocked. I'm looking at the bill like, oh my God, we spent this much money, because they give you that little card. It's like a credit card. You put everything on it. And at the end, you're like, what the heck? So I think the cruise ships are doing pretty good. I doubt if they would change it. I mean, it is possible, I'm sure. But let me ask you this. Let's go to just a regular casino. If a casino, somebody had the authority in the back to change, like let's say they thought, okay, for the next few hours, we're going to make the machines looser because, we want people to win. What would stop somebody from texting their friend, their cousin, some acquaintance, saying, hey, get over here because for the next 3 hours, the machines are going to be loose?
Yeah, exactly. No,
Vice versa, right. What would stop them from texting their buddy to say, hey, don't come to the casino this weekend. We've tightened them all up.
Yep. No, it's true. I mean, there would really be nothing to stop them other than the fear of getting caught.
Well, yeah, but you go on break.
Yeah.
Let's say I worked there. If I went on break and I knew you were coming that night, I'd text you, hey, they're kind of tight tonight, or hey, they're pretty loose tonight. People would be, oh, man, Mark's not at the craps table. Why is he at the slot machine? I just think there'd be too much to that, right? For them to do it. It just
I agree.
Wouldn't be worth it.
And that's a really good point. And I think to your point too, the casinos would never be setting up the slots to pay more than 100%. Right? There would be no case where, that would happen because of what you said. And because, oh gosh, I mean, if they're these slots are still random, even though they might be a little tighter or a little looser. If they're over 100%, they could get hammered.
And there's no reason, right? What's their reason?
That's the thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. There's, the thing is, human beings are really good at recognizing patterns. And they're also really good at recognizing patterns that aren't there. So when we see certain slot payouts, like, wow, they're really hitting tonight. Well, that's just as valid as, boy, they're sure rolling a lot of nines tonight at the craps table. They must have the nines turned up.
Right. Well, it's just like a guy who thinks that he keeps winning at poker because he never folds.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Can't figure that one out. I'm a little baffled by that, to be honest with you. All right. Well, thanks very much for those questions, Austin. Hey, thanks to everyone who's been clicking through our Amazon link. Remember, whenever you're going to buy something through Amazon, please go to our page first, youcanbetonthat.com, and click through our Amazon link towards the top of the page. All right. Let's listen to some more voicemails. First up is Fred.
Hi, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is listener Fred. Just before the casinos closed, I was in Las Vegas on Saturday, March 14th. In the morning, late morning, I stopped by the Cromwell, the craps table there. I know you guys had said, wonderful things about the Cromwell, and other people did as well. But I wasn't particularly impressed. I'm not saying that the dealers were rude or anything, but, they were just doing the perfunctory things. You give the money, they hand you the chips, and then what's what? In fact, I was betting on the all tall small, $1 each for the dealers, and, I got really nothing. So I bought in for $300, and I just lost. Just one bad roll after another. In about 4 or 5 shooters, I was essentially tapped out. And so there is a shoot-to-win craps machine still within vision range and hearing range of the crap table at Cromwell. So I started playing, put a couple $100 in, and before I know it, I hear a lot of cheering, and it winds up that the shooter, after I left, was still shooting, and people were, high-fiving and fist bumping, and it just went on, and I'm thinking, I left at the wrong time, but who's to say what was going to happen? But have you been in a distressing situation where you had lost and then everyone started celebrating after you lost? Anyway, I felt bad. Now, the plus side was that eventually, on the bubble craps machine, there was a long run, 30, maybe 35 rolls of the dice before the 7 out, and, I made back a lot of my money. And then I did something which I don't do in crap tables. I flipped to the don't, because my theory was that the chances of 2 long rolls back to back are really unusual. And boom, it was, 0.7 out, 0.7 out, and I had won like 250, and I decided to quit. So I guess maybe it wasn't too bad that I went to bubble craps, because I would not have used that strategy. Had fun, even though I lost a little bit of money, had a few drinks, and smoked a good cigar. one other question I have. You mentioned that a friend of yours, Paul, had the biggest run of his life while he was drunk, but you did not provide any details on whether it was craps, whether it was blackjack, and how much he won. So, if you wouldn't mind, could you give us the details? Thanks. This is Lister Fred signing off.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about Paul's big win. But first, let's go back to some of the other things that he was talking about. Yeah, Mike, you and I, we rave about the Cromwell, but when we have gone there early, like in the morning, we have had some downright terrible crews.
Right. And we always mention that don't go there in the morning because the morning crew, for whatever reason, does not seem to be very hospitable.
Yeah. It's hard to figure. And is it really just the mornings? I don't know, but that's when we've had the bad crews and then some great crews at night. So, it's hit or miss.
Right. As far as his, leaving the table and then having a big roll, Fred, that happens to us all the time.
Uh-huh. Yep.
That's why I stopped going to the bathroom. When I enter a casino, I don't go to the bathroom. If I go to the bathroom or I go to get more money at the cashier, inevitably it's a hot roll.
Oh my gosh, especially if he goes to the cashier. I mean, the dealers and I, we just look at each other like, oh my gosh, where's Mike? Somebody's rolled 3 hard 6s in a row or, a bunch of 11s on the come out roll or something.
And I think everybody enjoys telling me about it when I get back.
Oh, yeah. I keep track of the rolls and make sure I show you. Yeah, it's the same shooter. So, since you left, Mike, it's the same shooter.
I've got to really be able to make enough money. I never have to go to the cashier. And don't drink anything. Don't eat anything. Clean myself out before I leave.
Yeah, there you go. It's always a good idea anyway.
Yeah, right.
All right. And then when Fred was talking about switching to the don't, I've got to put on my maths hat here because he was saying he switched to the don't because a hot roll had just ended. And he was thinking, well, the chances of 2 back-to-back hot rolls are not very good. And I'm glad it worked out for him. The table got cold, but I just want to be clear when it comes to math like that. One good roll had already happened. It's kind of like, okay, a guy on the come-out roll, he rolls 12 twice. And then somebody says, oh, what are the chances of him rolling 3 12s in a row? Well, he's already rolled 2 of them.
1 in 36.
Yeah, the chance of the third one coming up is just 1 in 36. If you tell me right now, what are the chances that the next 3 rolls will be 12? Well, then that's 1 out of 36 cubed. So just, keep that in mind when it's like, oh my gosh, what are the chances of this many things happening in a row? Well, if some have already happened, the chances are way better.
Well, it's just like, what are the chances of 2 bad rolls in a row, right? Well, once you've had 1 bad roll, the chance of another bad roll next to it is like 95%.
Yeah, I would say that about
most of the rolls are bad.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's talk about Paul's big win. It was at Harrah's, right, Mike?
It was at Harrah's, Las Vegas. It was me, you, Paul, and our friend Mary.
Right. I think it was before either one of us had met our wives. And the 4 of us were there. And you and I were playing craps. I can't remember what Mary was doing. Maybe she was playing Pai-Gow poker or blackjack or whatever.
She was playing something. She ended up playing a little bit of blackjack with Paul. He was playing blackjack.
Yeah, the whole time he played blackjack.
Won all his money.
Yep. And he started drinking early. And, Paul's an interesting guy, kind of quiet, but when he drinks, he's pretty loud. And
right. He's totally different when he drinks.
Yeah. So he just started winning and winning and winning. And his drunkenness probably helped him in this case just because he was catching cards. He was probably betting more than he should have been.
Right. Because usually Paul's a pretty consistent bettor.
Yeah.
He'll up his bet when he feels like he's, doing well. But it's not that aggressive. But when he's drunk, well, I think at one point he was betting $600-700 a hand.
Yeah.
Which for Paul, he very rarely does that.
So he was getting kind of loud and drawing quite a bit of a crowd. The table, was definitely filled up, and there were a lot of spectators behind watching. And the floor must have maybe noticed what was going on and noticed how Paul was probably a little intoxicated. And apparently they called security over because at one point there was a security guard watching Paul. Now, I'm thinking that it was to protect Paul. Maybe not. Maybe they were looking to arrest him or something if they thought he was cheating. But there was a security guard standing over him by the end of his run.
Yeah, no, I think it was for his own protection. I think they thought, well, this guy's pretty drunk and he's got a lot of chips in front of him. And, they didn't want somebody taking advantage of him or maybe him passing out or something. I don't know. But I don't remember the exact amount he won. Do you?
I don't either. It was certainly when we were a lot younger and didn't have nearly as much money. And I want to say at one point he was up between $12,000 and $15,000, which for any of us at that time was huge.
Yeah, I want to say it was around the $15,000 mark. But the funny thing is we were staying, I believe, at Caesar's Palace. And after that run, we walked over to Caesar's Palace and he sat down and continued to win like crazy.
It did not stop.
And won like 4 or 5 more thousand.
Yep, I know. He was lucky. Then the next day when he was sober, he still bet fairly big, but by then his luck had run out. And he stopped. He's very good at saying, all right, that's it. I'm stopping. So he took a ton of that money home.
Yeah, he might be the best person. I mean, you and him are close, but I mean, he will stop.
Yeah, he definitely will.
When he's up big or down big, he will stop. I mean, he's just like, I've had enough. And even if it's like half a day left, he'll just stop.
Yeah.
The funny thing to that story is then he went home and he bought a lifetime supply of mustard and salt.
Yeah. He thought, I should really spend this money on something that I just buy once and then I never have to buy it again. So he, since then, has never had to buy more salt or mustard.
Right. It was so funny, him telling me. I'm laughing so hard because he's like, I don't really care for mustard, but every once in a while, I'll, put some mustard on a hot dog. So I'm buying one big jar of mustard and it's going to last my whole life. That was like a good use of his money, right? He wasn't wasting his winnings.
That's right.
Same with salt. One thing is salt.
Yeah, you can't do that with, beef, No. All right. Next up, let's hear from Josh with kind of a funny story.
Hello, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is Josh from Michigan. Many of your callers have stories about encountering antagonists at the casino. Well, in this story, I am the antagonist. It's back in February. I was staying at the Park MGM down in Las Vegas on the Strip, and about mid-afternoon went down to roll some dice. As I got down to the casino, there was one particular table that was packed and very loud. And as I got closer, sure enough, somebody was on a heater. So I stayed around for a little bit, hoping a spot would open up, and one did eventually after a few minutes right next to the shooter. So I snapped it up and waited patiently for an opportunity to buy in. The shooter hits a point. I put my money on the table. Now, I've played craps for a number of years and have taught other people to play craps. So it's not my first time. But as the dealer had sent my chips over, I realized there was no place to put my money down on the line. And I looked across around the table. It's packed. There's big stacks. This shooter had been on a heater for a while. So the only place I can see to put a line bet down is like right in front of the shooter. So I kind of nudge my chips up there, and as I look at him, I just say, hey, I'm going to put my chips here. And he doesn't look at me angrily, but a little bit quizzically. Now, I'm a big guy, but if I played linebacker in college, this guy looks like he played defensive end. He's a big, square-shouldered guy, but he turns his attention back, and I'm sitting there because I just feel something's not right. Like I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong. And as I look at the table again, I realize that I put my money on the don't pass line. So not only have I come in the middle of a hot roll, stood right next to the shooter, put my money on the don't, now I've announced it to him that I put my money on the don't. I quick grabbed my chips, put them on the pass line. I could have crawled under the table and died at that point. He goes on, rolls maybe 5, 6, 7 more times, and eventually does 7 out. And at that point, I turned to him and apologized profusely. But fortunately, he had made a lot of money. The table had made a lot of money, so they didn't take me outside and burn me at the stake. It was one of those times, though, when you always look to go to the table and be the hero, and I was definitely the villain. Appreciate your time, gentlemen, and hopefully we all get out to a casino again soon.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I know you're in the middle of, a really hot roll. Just want to let you know I'm betting on the don't now, and I'm going to put it right in front of you.
My money.
Dice out.
Put my money right here. Right in front of you. See this? Best part of that story was if Josh at the end would have said, well, I didn't really want to do that, but in your face.
That's right. 6 ace in your face.
In your face. That's a good story.
Yep. All right. Next call.
Hey guys, this is Matt Bob from Indy. Just calling in regard to the recent show where you talked about hosting home games on PokerStars, and our poker club has actually been doing the same thing. I did want to tell you about one cautionary tale that if you discuss money in the chat box during the game, there's a chance PokerStars could revoke your club. They're apparently watching the chat boxes to make sure people aren't using it to gamble for the legal ramifications, I assume, but somebody mentioned PayPal in the chat box in one of our games, and PokerStars threatened to close down the club. So just thought you might want to know about that. The other thing is that another caller called in about 3-card poker, asking why people play it blind. When we're in Vegas, a lot of times when we just want to sit around and soak up some free drinks and have a few yucks, we'll sit on a 3-card poker table. And if somebody's going badly or going well, we'll say, hey, we're just going to play these hands blind. But I guess my point is that you're talking about a game that has a 3.5% house edge anyway. So, and playing it blind does double that to about 7%. But you're playing a negative expectation game anyway. So if you're trying to make money at gambling or even minimize your losses, there are probably much better games that you would play without sitting down at a 3-card poker table. So I just want to make those comments and enjoy the show. You guys have a great day. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good advice. We've kind of said something like this before, not quite in this way, but I'll just say, if you're gambling stupidly and you're having fun, well, that's fine.
I agree with you, Mark. I mean, if that's what you want to do to have fun, I have played a few blind hands before, and it is kind of fun. I mean, you're just waiting to be revealed. I mean, now, if you know that that's not the best thing to do, and you want to do it anyway, that's fine.
Well, hey, it's better than betting prop bets on the craps table, right? The odds on the prop bets are terrible.
Right. You still have a better, a less of a house edge on the betting blind in 3-card poker than you do at prop bets.
Yep.
We've said this before. You shouldn't judge somebody else how they play.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like that's how they like to have fun.
Yeah.
Now, if it annoys you enough, just get up and leave, right?
Right. Yeah, we've said that before too. Well, that's great advice, though, that he was talking about PokerStars. Yeah, if you're playing for money, and again, you're Venmoing money or PayPaling money, behind the scenes while you play these play money home games on PokerStars, don't talk about any money in the chat window. It's really more to protect themselves than anything else. But yeah, I'm thinking back to maybe times when, we've even said, oh, good, $40 coming my way or something like that. Probably best to keep that out of the chat window.
Right. Well, in that one game, there was this whole back and forth about PayPal versus Venmo, right?
That's right. PayPal versus Venmo. And then there was another time where the amount of money that was being given to winners didn't add up to all the entries. So, hey.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how closely they monitor that, but it's like you said, it's actually to protect them.
Yeah. And, maybe they look for certain words. Right, like you said, PayPal. Like $40, that probably wouldn't mean much to them because they could think, well, you're just talking about $40 play money. But yeah, once you start saying, PayPal or Venmo, that might make a difference. All right, let's go to our last call from Jeff. Now, he's going to be talking about structuring during the call. So let's talk about that a little bit before we actually play the voicemail. So if you're involved in a cash transaction at the casino of $10,000 or more, the casino, by law, they have to fill out a currency transaction report on you, a CTR for short. And this form is sent to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network in order for them to try to uncover money laundering. So it doesn't affect your taxes, it doesn't go to the IRS and look at that. But it is recorded to try to uncover money laundering. And it's not only casinos, it's banks, anytime the transaction is $10,000 or more in cash. So let's say, you took out a marker for $20,000 and then at the end you paid the marker off. Well, there was no cash really involved. The casino lent you, the chips and you paid them back. So it's $10,000 in cash or more. Now, structuring is when you make multiple cash transactions of less than $10,000 to avoid these CTRs. So let's say you've got $18,000 that you need to cash out at the casino. And you're thinking, well, if I do all 18,000 right now, they're going to fill out a CTR, and I don't want that. So I think what I'll do is I'll do 9,000 today, and then I'll come back and do another 9,000, and that'll avoid it. That's called structuring. That's extremely illegal, and you'll get arrested for it if they catch you. Okay, so let's go on to the call.
Hey guys, it's Jeff from Los Angeles. My question is about structuring. I know there's so many advantage players, especially card counters, who their big thing is not to give up their ID for anything because they don't want to get an OSN or get a Griffin flyer. So when they do have a win, they take their chips and they just leave the casino and maybe come back later and make small little withdrawals through the cages or get friends to help them and get the money out that way. Isn't that structuring? Isn't that the epitome of structuring, especially if they have like over $10,000 and, they're getting out of a CTR, which they definitely don't want to sign one of those. And I know that to be a felony. Am I wrong? Is that jurisdictional or is that a federal thing? But wouldn't that be considered structuring? They're basically Smurfs coming in and making these little withdrawals, especially when casinos want to get their ID. I'm surprised they don't sit there and go, well, where are you going with that money? You can't just leave. You need to sign a CTR. It's the law. And they can get their ID and Social Security that way. So that's just a thought. My next question is there a law, and I've heard this, there's been bad backoffs and trespassing of certain advantage players where the casino has been reluctant to cash in their chips. Either they take the chips at the cage and just say, you show me your ID, or whatever, and they're just not cashing the chips. Isn't there a law saying if they take your money and give you chips, they have to accept the chips back and turn them into money? A lot of times these people have to call gaming or something, and usually it all goes fine once they get into it. But a lot of times this happens. Is there any law? Is it jurisdictional, or is it more blanketed? And would that go for also tribal casinos? Does gaming have any authority over a tribal casino, or is it just the wild, wild west over there? Hope you guys are healthy. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Once again, we are not lawyers, and we can't speak to all jurisdictions. But it is our understanding that, yes, at least in Nevada, if you're just going up to the cage to cash out chips, and again, it's under $10,000, yeah, they have to give you money for those chips, and they don't need your ID. And if they're insisting on your ID, they probably don't know the law. Or even if they do, maybe they're not obeying the law. Richard Munchkin says something on Gambling with an Edge that just because you're not doing something illegal doesn't mean you can't be arrested. And it's kind of like this here, even if they're, saying, oh, we're not going to give you chips so you give us ID, and you're refusing to give ID, well, maybe they're technically breaking the law, but what can you do at that point? Yeah, you can call gaming, and it's a big hassle, but a lot of times casinos just don't even know. Now, again, different jurisdictions and certainly tribal casinos, it is the wild, wild west. So if there was a tribal casino where they're saying, we're not going to cash your chips unless you give us your ID, well, whether they're within the law or not, you probably should give them your ID or you're not going to see your money.
Right. And I would think that I know if you're some advantage player, you don't want to give your ID because you don't want to be recognized. But that really does pull up a lot of red flags. If somebody doesn't have a player's card, doesn't want to give their ID, it almost, to me, makes the casino more adamant about getting that ID, right?
Yeah, I understand that. But at the same time, you don't have to provide it. And if they want to back you off or trespass you, well, they can do that. But as far as saying, hey, we're not going to cash your chips in because we don't have your ID, yeah, that's wrong.
I've, just on a personal note, I've always kind of worried about structuring because my pattern is we go to the casino Friday night. I take out $5,000 out of my account. We play. If I win on Saturday morning, I'm at the bank and I put the $5,000 back and I keep the winnings, to take back to the casino the next time I go. If I lose, let's say I lost $3,000 and I just have $2,000 left. Sometimes I just keep that until the next week. But a lot of times I'm taking out 5,000, putting in 5,000 back and forth. And I always wondered, does the bank think, like, why is this guy always doing 5,000?
Yeah,
I mean, exactly
right.
5,000.
Right.
Right. And I've never got called on it or had any problems.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when I've won more than 10,000, I will deposit like 12,000 in the bank or something, or something like that. But I mean, I kind of worry about it, but then it kind of slips my mind because no one's ever asked me about it.
Yeah.
And when I have deposited money, they ask for my ID at the bank.
Yeah.
And I give it to them. And the casino already knows me.
Yeah.
They already have my social security number and everything on record, right? If you're at a frequent casino, they don't even ask me now because they already have all that information.
Sure. Well, getting back to Jeff's call, the examples that he is giving, yes, that is structuring. What he's talking about absolutely is structuring. And those people could get caught. Now, how advantage players deal with big sums of cash, we're not sure. We're not advantage players. But I do know, talking about Richard Munchkin again, he's talked about how he will deliberately make cash transactions over $10,000 to generate a CTR just to kind of show, hey, look, I'm not even thinking about structuring. I am making these transactions over $10,000. So that's just a way of covering himself.
Right. And that just shows the government that you're being honest, that, hey, that's why when I win sometimes over 10,000, I just deposit it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Hey, we want to thank some people for some recurring PayPal donations. Justin, Robin from NE Time Gambling, Nathan, Brian and Sarah, Brian Dancer, and Josh. Thanks very much for those recurring donations. And also a PayPal donation from Tracy, who says, love the podcast. Thanks very much, Tracy. Hey, be sure to check out our TV listings showing all the gambling-related shows coming up within the next 2 weeks at youcanbetonthat.com/TV-listings and our list of gambling-related movies at youcanbetonthat.com/movies. We'd love to hear from you. Call our voicemail hotline at 951-292-4377. That's 9512-WAGERS.
9512-WAGERS.
Or you can email us at youcanbetonthat@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at youcanbetonthat and on Facebook at facebook.com/youcanbetonthat. Finally, please go to your favorite podcast app and write a review on us. We love getting your feedback. Got anything for us here at the end, Dr. Mike?
Well, I want to say I am so happy that we're starting to see some semblance of our life, our previous lives. So, people are going back to work in some places and the casinos are reopening. Hopefully it'll all go well.
Yep.
I'm praying it all goes well because it'd be terrible if all of a sudden there were problems and they had to close down again.
Yep.
That might shut you down for a long time, right?
It would start the cycle all over again, yeah.
Right, and there'd be a lot of hesitancy. So hopefully this will go well. Hopefully people who enter casinos will do the right thing.
Right.
Keep their mask on, at least for now, wash their hands, use the hand sanitizer judiciously, and do all the things that, you're supposed to do.
Yep.
I don't know about you, Mark, but my personal feeling is it's not that much to ask.
No, it's true.
And then everyone can get back to their life and enjoy themselves.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that happens. I also have to tell you a story. The running joke in our house is that when the girls are bored, I tell them, well, just listen to an episode of You Can Bet on That. Listen to an old one.
Uh-huh.
I said, those guys are delightful. and so my girls are always like giving me like the stink eye, Dad. So the other night we're eating Chinese from this Chinese restaurant that's near our house. And we go to eat our fortune cookies. And I open mine and I am not kidding. It said, you are entertaining and delightful.
Well, your daughters must have loved that.
Oh, yeah. I read it to them and they're like, come on, Dad, what's it really say? And I'm like, no. And I'm shoving it in their face, proud as a peacock, walking around the kitchen, telling them, we are delightful. I've been telling you.
That's great.
It's such a funny word.
Yeah, it is. You don't usually say that about. That's delightful.
I love that word. It's delightful. So I hope when we go back to the casino and we go to Harris, whether it's this Sunday or Monday or maybe next week. I hope it's delightful.
That's right. Well, I want to say one more thing before we sign off here. My son has a friend named Brandon who is in the Navy, and he's been stuck on a naval vessel ever since this crisis started. That wasn't the plan initially, but he has not been able to disembark during this whole time. And I know that he listens to the show. So shout out to you, Brandon. Thanks very much for your service. Thank you to all servicemen and women for all that you do, and all the first responders, and doggone it. I mean, really, there are a lot of people to thank during this whole thing, and we really do appreciate it.
Exactly. Perfectly said, Mark. And I was just telling the girls the other day, there are so many people who are so important to society. And sometimes it's people you don't think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the grocery worker guy.
Oh,
we never really thought about that before. But when this happens, we think about them because they're there working every day to make sure we get food. And so to all those people, we can't do it without you.
Yep. Very well said. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
Oh, sweet mother, I love you, Dr. Mike.